just a single event that needs to happen, a closure is fine. If I have to call something like multiple methods on a dependency, then I just inject the dependency. The view model can do both. So it's just a matter, like we leave it to the developer to decide what makes more sense. But yeah, if you had the knowledge that there is this object, then you might inject the dependency directly. But if you separated it and you just had a value type that describes the profile, so you had like a structure describing the user profile, you might not want to expose that information. So it's really use case specific. I don't like. So the thing with me is, I like to design the top architecture, like the high-level architecture choices. So I have a prescribed responsibilities for different objects, the top objects. So the view model, I have like responsibilities for view model, for view, and for flow coordinators. But then I don't tell people to always use MVVM, because there might be a static screen that it would just literally mean creating this class that does nothing and just passes the value in. So in that case, I would just allow the developer to just do MVC if they want. It doesn't really matter. It's mostly about like the consistency is helpful because it allows you to build tooling and improve the developer experience. So if I use the same architecture for for example, the section font it's always MVVM. Our section font is the main screen in the Times, which is what contains all the articles. That is always following MVVM, and that is because it allows me to write a lot of tooling. So for example, I wrote a tool that when you shake your phone, it tells you each type that's displayed on the screen, and when you tap on it, it actually dumps all the view model information into your clipboard that you can open in a different instance of your application and load the data. Which means that if I get a bug report, I can load the data from the bug. So that is where consistency helps. But the reason I don't like Viper is because it's too, it feels like you don't trust your developers at all, and so you tell them that this is very tight boundaries, and people still sometimes don't know where to put stuff. And if you have this very specific roles and people still wonder, something's wrong, right? Something is not okay. So I feel like it's more about the high-level requirements, and there are parts of the app that have to be done in specific architecture, just so it's fast, convenient, and stuff like that. But there are also parts that you don't really care that much, like ACMO, like the license view, for example. People generate to CocoaPods, or people do it manually. Does it have to be MVVM? Like, do your product really cares, right? So it's up to the team decision to what to accept. Like, it's not that we require leads to review every single pull request. You assign different people, and as a team, we have to agree what's right. Any other questions?
Do you do dependency injection between the flow coordinators?
So I actually use, I have an article about this, I use an approach with protocol composition. And yes, I use dependency injection between the coordinators and between the view controllers. What my approach allows you to do, though, is it makes maintenance of the dependency injection much easier. So normally, if you have view models or view controllers and you have the big dependencies, you usually have separate properties for each of them. That is actually very painful to maintain in a long-running project, because what happens a lot of the times is your dependencies increase or change, and then you have to go and change all the calls to that object initializer and update them, right? Update both the definition and the call size, which is problematic. And also, when you have a lot of properties in your objects, which one is the dependency? Like I consider, like there's the dependency and there's configuration. Like I separate those two concepts. Which one of them is the dependency that we need to mock, and which one is the configuration that we have to have different permutations of? And so, with regular DI in Swift, that is actually very painful. And especially for us, we felt it quite a lot because we have hundreds of nodes, which are basically hundreds of views in our application for different articles. Each of them requires different dependencies. And now, at some point, I had to refactor it, and I had to test 400 files, which is terrible. It's just terrible to do. So I come up with this approach using protocol composition. And how it works is basically you have a dependency container. It's not global. It's just created by the flow. Well, it's actually created by the app controller, injected into the first flow coordinator, and then into the next ones. What happens is that structure or class contains all the main dependencies of your application. So in our case, it's like a resource provider, user status provider, a couple of big objects that exist in a single instance for the application. But it also conforms to a bunch of protocols. And the bunch of protocols are basically has something protocol, has user status provider protocol, has resource provider. So we have those has protocols. Each of those has protocols contains a single variable, which is just a getter, it's read-only. And what happens is in your views and view models, rather than having multiple dependencies as separate objects, what you do is you create a type alias called dependencies, and then you do the type alias is has resource provider and has user status provider. And you use that type alias in your initializer for the variable called dependencies, and also for that variable in the store. And now the beautiful thing about this is there's a couple of benefits. So the first benefit is you look at this file and you see this big thing called dependencies, and you know immediately what it actually relies on. The other thing is, which often happens, is you actually stop using a dependency and it's still defined in the type alias. You can actually script it to get rid of it, because now you have this access to dependencies through the dependencies dot whatever the name. So you can write a script that if name of dependency doesn't appear in your file and it's in the type alias, like using sorcery or whatever, you can actually get like a warning or like a danger rule that it should be removed. So now you already have like a benefit here. You can also count the amount of dependencies you have, because if your object uses more than 3 or 4 dependencies, in 90% of cases something is wrong and it should be refactored into multiple objects. Another thing you can script, right? And the biggest benefit is the type system extracts the right dependencies for you. So what happens is in your flow coordinator, like you saw in the example I just did, state equals the state from that would be the same with dependencies, right? So I would, in the initializer, in the configuration function, in the flow controller, flow coordinator, I would just inject dependencies, and I would just say, like, inject the dependencies container that I have in the flow coordinator. But what happens at the type level is it doesn't actually inject all the dependencies. It uses the type system to inject just the things that your view is using, which means that if you decide that you need access to a different dependency in your view or view model, the only thing you have to do in your project is you go to your view model and you just modify the type alias. And now you have access to a new dependency. And you don't have to touch the flow coordinator, you don't have to touch initializers, you don't need to touch call sites. So that's how I do it. Yeah. It works really well. Any other questions? I can also answer questions after if people want to talk in private. If not, then thank you. And I heard that there is tickets to a conference under your seat. You can check. You might win one of the 5 tickets. There's Java 2 days.
Yeah, Java 2 days.
Okay, so check under your seats. You might have it. And thank you for listening.